Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a great weekend, and I've got something really fun today. I know I don't do a whole lot of long form interviews here on the channel, but you may have heard me talking about a movie on Charts with Dan and elsewhere called Violent Ends. It hit theaters last weekend, and the director of the movie is a guy named John-Michael Powell. He actually is from my hometown. We're right around the same age. We didn't go to the same school, but we had mutual friends, so when we were growing up, we would talk about movies. He ended up going to Los Angeles. We were there around the same time. You'll hear in this interview we actually shared a lot in common, and I'd lost touch with him over the years, but I got a mutual friend to get us back in contact because I wanted to congratulate him about the movie. And in the course of our conversation, I asked him if he would like to come on the channel and talk about the process of getting the movie made. And I think that it was a really, really good discussion because he talked about not just how he got this indie movie made, but about every aspect of it, from writing it to the 10 plus years it took to get it made, to the casting of it, to distribution, to what it's like to read reviews of your own movie. It really does cover every single aspect of making a movie as a writer-director and of seeing that movie finally make its way into the world. So if you're interested in the making of movies, and especially if you are an aspiring filmmaker who might want some tips or at least hear what it's like from somebody who's been there, I think that this is going to be a really interesting conversation. So let's throw it over to my interview with John-Michael Powell. I am super excited to be talking to John-Michael Powell. He is the director of a movie called Violent Ends, which just came out in theaters about a week ago around the country. We're going to talk about getting a release as wide as this movie got. And one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to him, well, there's two. Number one, he's an indie director. He got this movie made, and I want to talk about the process of that. And number two, we share a lot in common. So let's bring John-Michael in. First of all, how's it going, man? It's good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's going great, man. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. First of all, I remembered we grew up basically in the same town around the same time. Like we
Yeah,
used to hang out together when we were kids, which is a lot
yeah,
of fun to see you now as a director with a movie in theaters. That's awesome.
yeah. No, I mean it's great. I think it's wild that we're from such a small place too. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so wild to know, like to see a pilgrimage that we both ended up leaving that little place and ended up in similar spaces. And I remember we used to talk about movies all the time, but it wasn't like I don't think we were growing up thinking about where we'd be now, which is crazy.
No, and we both in North Little Rock. We're both around the same age. We both ended up in Los Angeles. And then what John Michael reminded me about as we were talking before the interview, and what I either had forgotten or didn't know, is that you preceded me at what was then Break Media, editing stuff for Screen Junkies as well.
Yeah, it's wild. We were like literally at the same building, at the same place, just passing ships in the night, I guess, creatively. But yeah, I was editing all the Screen Junkie stuff before your time, and then there was a load of other funny videos that we were trying to edit for Break, and we were kind of had a little creative team there that I'm sure you interfaced with too. That was like kind of a producing circle, and we were all sitting around making funny videos.
And so here we are. I've got a movie channel. You've got a movie. It's called Violent Ends, and I want to talk about just kind of starting off at, as cliche as it is, but your journey, because when people talk to me about Los Angeles and how did I get to do what I do, I always say that, like, well, it was a long process, and a lot of that process at the beginning is just working what you can do where you can. I mean, it's not like you go to step one of director job and work your way up the corporate ladder. It's really about just kind of treading water where you can until you can to get some traction, get your feet under you.
When I came to LA, I literally after the day I graduated college just drove to LA with it was me and my dog. I knew nobody in LA. So I spent the first year of my life in LA just sending out resume after resume after resume, just trying to get somebody to give me an opportunity. Ended up my first job was working as a night logger on Road Rules and Real World Challenge, which was a thing back then. I'm dating myself, but it was, it was my foot in the door, and it was from there just one little baby step after another, and I worked my way up as an editor, and that's how I ended up at Break. And yeah, I did so many odd jobs that now, if I think back on it, it's crazy. And you work crazy hours, and you grind so hard just to get very little in return. But But geez, I guess if you stick at it long enough, keep putting one foot in front of the other, you end up making a movie and you end up getting where you want to be. So,
I mean, yeah, it is. It's a grind. You talk about working crazy hours. I remember, I think it was the same offices you worked in at Break. The bathrooms were outside of the main office. You had to go outside, and to get back in, you had to have a key card. And I didn't
yep,
have a key card, so there were nights where if everybody was gone and I was working late, which was a lot, if I had to go to the bathroom, I either had to hold it or like prop the door open and hope it didn't close. Like it was, yeah.
I
The
remember that.
hours are long, and you have to grind it out. So I was reading, I was looking at a couple of the interviews you did. I think you said you wrote the script for this movie, Violent Ends, was 13 years ago.
About, yeah, just about that.
So what? Because again, you hear this story, and I've heard direct, and I've thought this as well. This question, when you hear somebody say it took 10 years to get this movie made or whatever, that's not, I'm assuming, 10 or 13 years of like every single day. Your job isn't to get this movie made, but I mean, what is the process of finishing a script and then for 13 years trying to get it made? Are there times where it just sits in a drawer and you're like, well, it's not going to happen? Or what's that process like?
Yeah, there's a lot of times where it's just sitting in a drawer and you're banging your head against the wall. I mean, look, even getting friends to read a script is hard. Getting, let alone, executives who are going to potentially let you make the movie. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it was, like I said, I wrote the film about 13 years ago. I was actually in North Little Rock at my childhood home where I grew up when I had the idea. And I remember calling Sean Jones, actually, who was in the movie, who grew up with us in North Little Rock, and pitching him the idea for it. And yeah, wrote it shortly after that. And the script went through many years of, there's this traditional path of making a movie when you're in LA, that an independent movie where, let's say you have a script and you want to get it made. Well, you start handing it out to every person you can possibly find in town who has any sort of clout or connection to potentially actors or financing. It's always, that's the game. It's always, we need the money and we need the actors. And so for this project, I passed the script to a friend that I went to college with in Texas, TCU. His name was Chris Goebel. And Chris Goebel, I must have been 12-ish years ago, read the script, really liked it, and passed it to this guy, Jeff Silver, who ran a lit management company called Fourth Floor Productions. And they ended up signing me off that script to represent me as my managers. And from there, it was this slow ebb of the script going out, meeting people. I met hundreds of people that they sent me out on generals for, which are just like
Mhm.
general meetings to meet and greet. And the recurring thing on all these generals that you find is you sit down and you have this meeting with so and so. You feel really excited because suddenly you're at A24 or Neon or whatever, and everyone's like, "We love this script. What else do you have? What are you going to do next?" And nobody wanted to make the movie, so it was. I was like, well, but why can't we make this movie? You love the script, let's do it. And it was just an uphill battle of getting anyone to see the benefit of making this movie. And I, fortunately, through those generals, I met one. I went on 100 meetings. I met one person that ended up becoming my producing partner, who I fell in creative love with, and I'm still very close friends with to this day. His name's Vincent Sieber. Vinny came on board around 2017. This would have been probably 4 years into pushing very hard. We spent those years putting the movie together in this way where we went out and found the actor for the lead role, and that actor, he meant a certain amount of value. Then we could take to foreign sales agents and say, hey, can you sell the movie off the back of this actor? And we made that kind of house of cards work. And I was actually going to make the movie with Aaron Paul and Jane Lynch at the
Mm.
time. And Aaron was just coming off Breaking Bad, so he was kind of like on a upward trajectory. And so we were ready to go. 3-4 weeks before we shot, the whole movie fell apart, and I was just depressed. I was like, I have spent 3-4 years putting this thing together only for it to fall back on me. And so I set the movie aside, and I went back to the drawing board, started writing a bunch of other things. Now this has maybe been 9 years since I wrote Violent Ends, and just tired of going through the grind of everything. And so during COVID, I made the decision to make a micro budget movie. I literally was like, I'm done waiting for Sony's to say yes or Netflix's. And I took my savings, spent about 50 grand, and made a little movie during COVID with my friends. And that decision led to Violent Ends coming back around, because once I made that movie, was called The Send Off. Once that movie came out, it kind of gave me a little bit of wind in my sails, and that movie went to festivals and kind of got some decent press. And that brought back the opportunity of Violent Ends. And so then, yeah, it came back around, and I was like, I have the script, and that almost went. And, by hook or by crook, we ended up getting the money and making the movie. We shot it in 2023. So it took about, and now it's 2025 and the movie's just coming
Yeah.
out. So it's been like, I've lived with this story for way too long.
That's crazy. I mean, I was invited to talk to a group of high school kids locally here last week because it was more sort of kind of a career business type class, but they hadn't had anybody there's not many people up here that run their own YouTube channels for a living that I know of. And the advice, I think, is a lot of it applies to all different careers areas, but I did have somebody who came up to me and said that she was interested in being a writer and getting into the business and wanted my advice. And I said my number one advice, and I think it's especially true in the entertainment industry, is people, meeting people, not just, and when I say that connections, I don't just mean go out there trying to glad hand people and trying to build false relationships that are only motivated by business. I mean, finding people that are out there to do the same thing that you're trying to do, that have similar interests. Because if you create that network of people that are all trying to achieve something, then you can end up helping each other. Somebody is up, and someone's always up, and someone's always down. And the people that are going up are usually trying to help lift the other ones around them up.
You brought up Channel 101, and Channel 101 is a great example of that. And maybe is Channel 101 still around?
It is still around.
Okay.
It's operating like as a nonprofit right now, but they're still chugging along.
It's a great example. It's like because I was in the Channel 101 community too. Again, we were ships in the night. Must not have. I'm sure we brushed shoulders at one point, but
we must have.
Yeah, but that was a great community where like you got to make these little things, share it with like-minded people, and like you all started kind of working with each other, and just like one person would edit one person's video or one person would direct. It was, yeah. I tell young people all the time who have a interest in making it as a filmmaker, build a community. Like I said, we played the movie Violent Ends at Cal State Fullerton, a week or two ago, and I got to interface with a bunch of young, energetic 20-year-olds who wanted to make movies. It was actually really galvanizing for me to be back around people who were optimistic, because so much of as you get older in this business, you get so jaded. But I said to them, I was like, look, someone asked me advice. I was like, if I was your age and I was 20 years old and doing it all over again, oh my gosh, like you have YouTube, you have Instagram, you have all this social media connection to build personal creative connections with other people. Like go just make anything you can make and connect with people. And like it's what's the saying? All ships rise, all tides.
The rising tide floats all ships, or something like that.
That's it. Thank you. But it is very true, and it is a business where, or not even a business. It's just a creative endeavor where it seems like you can do it alone, but you just absolutely, you can't. You need a community behind you. You have to build an army.
So specifically with Violent Ends and getting the movie made, would you say the spark that got it going was you making that initial film as sort of a not a proof of concept, but saying, "Here, I'm established now. I've made this movie." Was it getting somebody to sign on specifically? Was it a distributor? What was it that finally made this be like, okay, this is actually happening this time?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely the send off, that first little movie. I mean, I knew I had it in me. Like I was confident that I could pull off, making a competent film. By the time Violent Ends came back around, I had been editing movies and television. That was like how I paid the bills. So like, I'd done the show Dear White People. I'd, done a host of Netflix series. So like I had made a lot, just not as a director. I think it was just the choice to make that $50,000 movie that started the conversation. Honestly, like that movie went to a small festival in LA called Dances with Films. It played at the Chinese Theater. And my investor on Violent Ends came away from that experience. When you come in as a wee little ant in this business, it's easy to think, well, I need to walk the path that the industry says I need to walk, and I need to take the meetings that I need to find the right people who are going to say yes. In reality, in my experience, that rarely ever works unless you're just like some preternatural kind of talent who has, a lot of heat. I hate that word, but let's just put it this way: there's very few Spielbergs left in the world who can walk out at 25 and go make Jaws, which I'm seeing behind you, which I think is the best movie ever made. But
Oh boy, that's you and me both.
yeah, but what I think it really takes is just taking the initiative for yourself and doing it yourself, and just not wait. For me, at least, that was the thing that got me over the hump of just not sitting around and waiting and playing by the rules that Hollywood has set forth. Because the truth is, like, nobody's going to want to give you an opportunity unless you just have connections, and which I didn't. Coming from Arkansas, I knew nobody. You've really got to just like show people that you can do it, and the only way you do that is by doing it.
So I want to talk. You have a great cast in this movie. I want to talk about Billy Magnussen, who's your lead. He is somebody who the first movie he's been doing. I mean, he's been around forever, but
Yeah.
the first movie I remember seeing him in and going like kind of clocking him and being like, "Who's that guy?" was Ingrid Goes West, which I love that movie. And then Game Night, which he was great. He's part of that ensemble in Game Night. And even like movies like Aladdin, where he's a small part, but he's always been somebody who I see in a movie and I remember him afterwards, and I'm like, he was really good in that. But generally, those roles, comedic, even in a darker comedy, they generally tend to be a bit more comedic. And so this role is not that at all. Was this a case of him coming to you, you going to him? Because I don't think he would be the first person. Certainly, if I were casting, I wouldn't think of him first for the lead of the movie. But he actually fits the part very well, and he's very good in the role. So, how did you land on him as the lead of the film?
Yeah, well, you're not the only one who felt that way. When his name came up, everybody was kind of like, "What?" I think most people knew him from Ingrid or Game Night at the time, and everybody was like, "Wait, the funny guy?" And you're right, Billy is so good at walking into these bigger ensembles, and he only has 2 or 3 moments, but he steals those moments. I had the fortune of cutting a very small movie that Billy was in back in 2012. It was called The Brass Teapot, and he had a very small role in that movie. It was a comedy, naturally. And it was a kind of a really good laundry list of amazingly talented comedic actors. It was like, Michael Angarano, Juno Temple, Thomas Middleditch, Bobby Moynihan, Alia Shawkat, really talented people. And then Billy and Kristen Milioti played these two weirdo characters who were just showed up in a few scenes. And I remember editing that movie, and I was looking at Billy and Kristen's dailies because they were always tied together in every scene, and thinking, geez, these guys, they're just scratching the surface of the talent that they really have. Like, and that's the benefit of being an editor, is I get to see what they're doing in between takes. And like when the camera's not rolling, the way they're talking, the way they're acting. Quite frankly, we were kind of negotiating the lead role with another actor. And we were at UTA, which was Billy's talent agency. And there was an opening because that actor had a scheduling issue, and we weren't really sure. Also, he had a visa issue. He was actually English. Billy's agent swooped in and slipped us his name, and they were like, "Look, what do you guys think about Billy for this?" And when his name came up, my producers were like, "That doesn't make any sense." And I was like, "Wait a minute, guys. Wait a minute." I was like, "I swear to you, I've cut a movie with Billy. He's so talented. He's got this in him." And to me, it's just, I love those casting choices where, you cast against type. It's like the comedy guy who can do dark things, or the dark drama guy who can do comedy. Whenever you find those revelations, it's so rewarding for an audience. And most people don't know, but Billy, this is the first movie Billy's ever been number one on the call sheet in his entire career. So
Wow.
it's like literally his first leading role. And I really like, out of all the things, that I'm proud of with this movie, one of the things I'm most proud of is Billy's performance. I really do think, like, if you know Billy, like you've just said, if you watch this, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, this is not the Billy Magnussen I've ever seen before in my entire life. And he goes to some very deep, dark places in this role. And I think hopefully people see him in a way that I hope from here on out, Billy gets the opportunity to do a lot of different types of roles because I think he's so talented.
I mean, there's a scene, and I won't give away the plot details, etc. But there's a scene toward the end of the film where he's sort of coming to a final reckoning about what this thing that he's been wrestling with the whole time, and ultimately makes his decision, and just the externally and internally, the way he's able to communicate what that character is going through, what that character has gone through, is just and I've always felt as an actor, and I'm sure as a director, you have to kind of feel out how to handle an actor in this situation when it's a scene like that where there's really no cutaway, the camera is on your face, and it's kind of the crux of the movie. I mean, that's a lot of pressure for an actor, even a great actor. And I thought that he really, I mean, crushed it in that moment. And I mean, if I'm sure as you direct a movie, you get a feel for the actors and how they work well and what their process is when you're leading up to a scene like that, and like it's all on this guy in this moment. With the style of your directing, with the style of his acting, was that kind of a case of just sort of getting him in the headspace and letting him roll, or how much of that was you trying to have to draw out what you needed in that moment?
It's something that people don't think about quite often with movies, but I think it's crucial, is scheduling. Like being mindful of where you put that scene in the schedule, because I knew we had conversations very early on. We were like, this is the scene. He has it. You can't put this on day one. You can't put it on day two. It can't even be week one. For this movie, where it's a very clear character arc, a gradation going from, not to give too much away, but going from morally sound to potentially morally bankrupt by the end of the movie. It's got to be, the movie rests on that gradation. My nickname for Billy on this movie, and it will be my nickname for Billy for the rest of my life, is Billy the Bronco. Billy is a wild horse, and he's like Billy gives 120%. He gives everything. But you need to let Billy, he's a wild horse. You got to let Billy ride. And so like if you try to steer him left or right, he's only going to buck, and and you're not going to get the best performance out of him. So like, quite frankly, that scene in general, it was giving Billy the emotional space. I went to Billy very early on, and I knew, because that was such a keystone scene, I said, look, let's rewrite this monologue together, you and I. I want to hear your words. So a lot of that monologue is Billy. It helps that I was an editor for so long. So like, this is going back to what we were saying before, is like, one thing I will say to young filmmakers, if you want to direct, edit. Like, go put something together and understand what it means, what pace means, what rhythm means, what performance is. When things don't go exactly as I planned, I don't freak out, because I can re-edit the movie in my head, and I can go, oh, you know what? Billy made a choice there to cry, or to, look down and not make eye contact. It's okay. It's okay. As an editor, I can give him the space that he needs to explore. I think that's a lot of what actors want. They want the freedom to try things and to be vulnerable in a safe space.
Well, and you gave James Badge Dale a great gift as a heavy, or as a villain. You gave him a great eating while monologuing scene, a very menacing, because that was, especially barbecue, greasy, stringy. I mean, I've got to imagine if you're playing the heavy, you see that, you're like, oh yeah, I can. This is going to be great.
It's a fun scene. Yeah, he really kills it in that scene too.
So the movie's set in Arkansas. I assume it was always set in Arkansas from the script stage. You filmed it up here in Northwest Arkansas, in my neighborhood.
Yes.
Was there ever any? I mean, first of all, I'm sure you did that, and we talked about it a little bit before we started chatting, started recording. The idea of wanting to bring authenticity, representation to the state of Arkansas. It's something I discussed with the director of Sovereign earlier this year, who also shot up here in Northwest Arkansas. Was there ever any pushback from either producers, financiers, people saying like, well, do we have to do it in Arkansas? It might be cheaper if we go here. Or were people pretty much on board with saying like, you want to do it in Arkansas? We're doing it in Arkansas.
Yeah. It's so funny. You're only the second person to ask that. And the other person was from Arkansas as well. And
of course,
of course, that's indicative of, I think, when because when you live in Arkansas, the mentality of what it's like, what outsiders think of us, right? Or the way they see us. We have this, I've joked a few times that we have a little bit of an inferiority complex that's built into our little man syndrome. But
It's because the portrayals are so negative so often. It's they just think of redneck hillbilly farm, Green Acres, Hooterville, like that's what people think of.
and unfortunately, that's the truth. And I, from the get go, that was one of the mission statements with this movie, was trying to make a movie that was set in Arkansas, that towed the line between, you know, redneck and reality. Like, the reality is we do have rednecks in Arkansas, yes, but also, by the way, you're looking at two Arkansans who probably, from all outward appearances, nobody would think we were from Arkansas. We don't really have accents. We don't, and we grew up like any person watching Back to the Future or Jaws. Like, it's a very nuanced state. There's a lot of different cultures in Arkansas, and yeah, and I wanted to make something where, like, you oftentimes, especially in crime movies, I love crime movies, as you can probably tell. Somebody at one point said to me, actually, it might have been Billy. We were talking. He was like, "It's kind of like the movie's like Redneck Godfather," and I was like, "Yeah, yes." I was like, "I think I have no problem with that terminology at face value." I was like, "I think that sums up, the crux of the conflict and the setup. A guy from a bad family is trying not to be like his family, which is like Godfather, sure. But what Godfather's so great about is, as a movie, prior to that, gangster films had slowly rolled into tropey Italian gangster, stereotypes. Godfather comes along and shows a much more nuanced variety of Italian American immigrants. They're not all good; they're good and bad, but it's like it's a world. Do you know what I mean? And I
Right.
love the way that movie elevated the Italian immigrant, and crime families, and made them more nuanced and not in any way as violent ends, in any way living up to the standards that Godfather set. But if you could draw some sort of connection, I would say, like, I definitely hoped to make a movie where Arkansans would watch the movie and go, "Oh, that's a real Arkansas movie." Like, to me, if we do that, then we won. Just the heart of the movie, like, there's a lot to relate to if you're from these small places and everybody knows everybody and everybody knows everybody's drama. Not obviously, we didn't all grow up in a place where there's drug trade and revenge tales going on, but we went to great lengths to try to make every little pocket of the world feel authentic and lived in. A lot of that is my production designer, Christian Snell.
So 13 years, you get the movie made, you got your cast, you're up here in Arkansas, you finished it. Um, I'm curious because now, especially now with the media landscape the way that it is, a lot of movies, they'll go direct to premium video on demand, they'll go direct to digital, they'll go direct to a streaming service, Netflix or Peacock or whatever. Or they'll come out in theaters, but they'll do like the simultaneous thing. You're in 20 theaters and you're going streaming at the same time. Violent Ends, to see a movie of its size going out into, because I do box office every week on the channel as well. I think it was in 700, 800 theaters on opening
Yeah.
weekend. That's not common for an indie. Usually it's in maybe 20 or 30. So was that something that, when you found a distributor, they came in with this, hey, we're going to go aggressive, we're going to put it in, almost wide release around the country? Or was that something that was you developed as you were in post production? When did you realize, hey, this is actually going to be going out pretty wide?
Yeah, it was definitely. I mean, it was a pipe dream for me, dude. Like, I think when we made the movie, I was like, if we could just be in one or two theaters for a day, like, that would be a massive step up. And yes, you're describing day and date. A lot of movies these days are released the same day as they're released on VOD. And I thought, quite frankly, when we were going to sell the movie, that we would be lucky to even be afforded that opportunity. This movie had a very strange kind of festival run, or lack thereof, because this movie got rejected from every festival all over the map. Big festival, small festival, didn't matter. We got rejected everywhere. And at that point, I thought, oh well, my career's over. Like, that's done. Like, nobody's gonna see this movie, and I'll have to start all over again from scratch. And we were very fortunate because our sales reps were UTA, where Billy was, and we also had XYZ, who were reputable sales agencies. They were very smart, because what happened this past year at Sundance, and not to get too into the weeds on nerdy, like, film sales stuff, but, like, it was
Listen,
a very
you're on the channel if you want to get nerdy and into the weeds on film sales stuff. You're at the right place, trust me.
great. Well, then I'm sure you and your audience know Sundance was a bit dry this year. It was a weird year for Sundance. fortunately to our benefit, because what happened was XYZ and UTA kind of saw, they were reading the tea leaves. They were like, okay, they were coming back from Sundance and they're like, it doesn't feel like there's going to be a lot of sales. We're going to set up a screening in Los Angeles. That gives us February. We're going to cut a trailer and put together a trailer right before South by. We're going to send that trailer out to every buyer in town. What often happens is the movies at Sundance will trickle to South by. Well, it stands to reason if Sundance was so slow, then it's probably going to be a slow year for South by as well. We'll bank on that, hope that when people are coming back from South by thirsty to buy something because they didn't buy anything, they'll go, oh, yeah, that movie that we saw the trailer for, and then they'll come to a screening in LA right after. I will say it was a brilliant plan because it paid off gangbusters. We came back from South by, every buyer in town, every distributor from Apple to A24 to Neon came to the screening at UTA and watched the movie, which is kind of like, that's why you go to Sundance anyway. You hope that those buyers are in the room at Sundance watching. So we kind of skipped the process and just held our own screening. One thing led to another. By the next week, we had 10 offers on the movie. Wow. And so, yeah. And so we were very fortunate. It was bullish, but yeah, we were very fortunate. IFC came along and said, look, we don't see this as day and date. They gave us a 17-day theatrical window, which is insane to me. Like, most of my friends who are selling their movies are lucky to even get a theatrical footprint at all. Yeah. And they said, honestly, they contractually, they were only obligated to 300 theaters. So I was expecting around 300 theaters. When they went out to book the movie, they ended up getting a lot more theaters around the country that wanted to book it. And we ended up in 700 plus theaters. Wow. So it's wild that it worked out this way, but like, I feel very fortunate that we're with IFC, and they've been amazing partners. Like, I love IFC.
What is it like to have a movie? You wrote the script over 10 years ago, so many stops and starts, green lights, and then you get stopped down, and then you have this lightning strikes with the distribution and everything. But once the movie's out, I mean, you've got to talk to bozos like me for promotion and to talk about the movie, but the movie's out. It's sort of out of your hands. It's in critics' hands now. It's in the audience's hands now.
In critics' hands, all right.
What is that feeling where it's now the discussion around the movie you're not in control of anymore? It's now entirely up to the people who are watching it. I imagine it's got to be a lot of different conflicting feelings.
Yeah, it is. It's a bit. I actually was talking to, not to name drop at all, but I was talking to Jeff Nichols, who's an Arkansas filmmaker. Talking to Jeff last week as the movie was being released, and I was like, how do you do this? Because it's just so gut wrenching. And he's like, I describe releasing a movie like having your skin peeled off in public. It's just, it's brutal. And it is. And the thing is like, he made a good point. And he goes, look, for better or worse, we make a disposable product. And like, people are going to either love it or they're going to hate it. And, they can be really tough and snarky and awful. As we all know, the internet can be brutal from time to time. But then you have to live in the positive. I mean, you can't just sit there and dwell in the negative. I never thought of myself as a person. Let's just put it this way: on all the movies I've ever edited and things like that, the TV shows, I rarely, if ever, read the reviews. It doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. I've been reading lots of reviews on Violent Ends, and it's been really enlightening. And like, even the reviews that like rip it apart, I'm like, even in the negativity, there is a morsel of truth. Look, dude, it's tough. It's hard. You have to have thick skin, and you have to let it roll off your back, and know that where the reasons you made the movie. It's, for me, it's so interesting because it's like, I wrote this movie when I was 20. I'm 42 now. I wrote this movie when I was like in my 20s. It's so not really indicative of me as a grown man now, but it is a very specific slice of where I came from, and I'm very proud of that. Going back to what we said earlier, like, if you want to make a career at this, it's about building an army. And again, 2,000 people might see the movie and only 20 people like it, but that's okay. Those 20 people become the people that you jive with and you connect with, and that's okay. Like, everybody has their own opinions, and you just gotta be a rhino. You gotta have thick skin and just keep barreling through the industry, because that's the only way to do this.
Somebody today, we were talking about a movie I just reviewed. They were saying, well, I liked it for these reasons. I thought that it was good. And I responded and I said, that's great. I love that. They're kind of the reasons I didn't like it, but
Yeah,
you responded to it because you like that, and that's totally fine. And I think that that's what's kind of lost in the internet discussion around movies. Uh, Definitely on the critical side, and I would imagine as a creative as well. Is there? I find it's like there's a quest to find the one true opinion. There's a quest to find the verdict on a movie. People still are debating The Last Jedi because it's like they think they're going to find the one true conclusion, and it's like no, there isn't one. And I can imagine, it's I have trouble when people push back against something. Usually, if you don't agree with my opinion, that's fine.
sure.
That's part of the game, but it's sort of like you were saying, pushing against the agenda or pushing against, there's sometimes where people will disagree with something I say based on not on something I actually said, but based on a preconceived idea. And that's where I have a problem. I can imagine it's much worse when it's a work of yours. You feel like someone's misinterpreting it, or you feel like they're not understanding where you're coming from. But like you said, you've got to let it roll off your back, because otherwise, I would imagine it would just consume you.
Yeah, it would be debilitating. You would lock up. I mean, there have been reviews, by the way. Like I've definitely read. Like there was maybe a IndieWire or somebody. Some of the one of the bigger ones where like the headline described it as a like an Appalachia tale, and like
Nope.
somewhere in the article, yeah, I'm like Appalachia is not the Ozarks,
Nope.
and then somewhere in the article it described the movie as a true story, which I've never claimed it to be a true story whatsoever. And but you know what? But by the way, that critic was one of my favorite critics. He's notoriously tough, and he's a brutal critic. And but he,
I think I know
despite
exactly who you're talking about, but go ahead.
and I love him for better or worse. I mean, and when I heard that he was going to review the movie, I was like, oh, here we go. We're just going to get destroyed. But he didn't. I think he gave it. The good critics are really good at finding and tapping into, a very personal approach to cinema and to things that gives people a broader way of understanding that cinema. The tough thing I have, and I don't know how you feel about this, but like I think maybe this isn't so much film criticism as it is the world we live in now. But like, you know, I love Letterboxd. I'm a geek for Letterboxd. Now that I have a movie that is on Letterboxd, and I've actually started reading so many Letterboxd reviews, and like I think somebody described Violent Ends as like it reeked of fart, and everybody who was in the movie must have just been farting throughout the whole. And so I'm just like, it's so funny how like how the discourse around cinema is now. It's just that it's such a brief window
Mm-hmm.
into a very complex art form. I actually really do get a kick out of watching or reading all the bad reviews on Letterboxd. I laugh at them, and they're fun. And I do think that like there's value in community and having discourse and create discourse around cinema. I hope cinema continues to thrive, and that these reviews and these critics help build a new landscape where we're all analyzing cinema in a really smart way and a really healthy way. It's a shame that sometimes it turns negative and kind of acidic, but that's the internet, dude, and that's the world we live in.
Listen, we could do a whole other interview about my thoughts on the attention economy and how
Yeah,
doing stuff for clicks and likes has ruined discourse and nuance and everything else. It is a founding philosophy of tenet of my channel, but it's a whole other discussion. And you have been very generous with your time, so I'll wrap it up just by asking. We've talked so much about what it takes uh, to get it something made, the perseverance, the work, the connections, etc. A lot of times when people ask me what I think about people that are just starting out, I say I think it's the best and the worst time to get involved if you want to be a creative. The best in the sense of there have never been more outlets. There have never been more ways to get your name out there to gain notoriety, whether that's through social media, whether that's through YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, whatever kind of and I hate the word content, whatever kind of art you want to make. There is an avenue for that and a way to get that out to people. You bypass the traditional distribution barriers that used to be there. But I think it's harder than ever because of the same reason. There is so much competition. There is so much people wanting that attention that you're competing for the same eyeballs across now social media, streaming sites, regular traditional media. for somebody like that person that came up to me last week and wanted to ask about starting out, I mean, is there anything apart from what we've talked about already, which I think are just have always been the basic tenets of making a name for yourself, working hard, connections, etc. But specifically in today's landscape, is there anything that if somebody's watching and they want to do, they have a violent end sitting in their desk drawer or that's saved as a file on their computer, what do you think other than, and there's always an element of luck involved too, the right place, right time, right strategy for distribution. What do you think somebody should be focusing on if they want to be the next director, have the next movie that's coming out, other than just kind of the basic, the stuff that's always going to work?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the prereq, like you're saying. The prerequisites are make things and make them good. That is, yes, that is, and dude, you're so right. Like, I think that's a very good way of putting it. It is the best and the worst. It's the best of times. It was the worst of times. It is. There are so many more outlets and there are so many more avenues with which to create a career here. The downside of that is there's more competition than there ever has been. The plus side of that, the positive side of that is like, I think that puts the onus on artists to be more bold and be more creative, to cut through the noise and create things that really, ignite people. I was reading this book about power. It's written by this Stanford professor, and he's all talking about the way you utilize and manifest power. And this book is not about cinema. It's about political power, corporate power, all these things. But there's a mindset that I think you have to have in order to make a career as a director and as a filmmaker, as a producer, whatever you want to do. And I think one of the most valuable things that you can possibly do is find the things you're good at and reinforce yourself and convince yourself that you are good at these things. Because it's very easy in this business, and not just this business, it's easy in this world to go around comparing yourself to other people and thinking about yourself, even though you don't realize you're doing it in a slightly negative way. And we're all hard on ourselves, but you've got to find a way inside your brain to condition yourself to see yourself as capable. It is definitely putting in the hours and grinding it out, but it's also just building a place mentally where you believe in yourself, because I think, nobody else is going to be sitting out there waiting for you, believing in you. Maybe you brought up luck. Maybe one day you will luck into finding that benefactor who does believe in you for whatever reason. But I guarantee you that benefactor is only going to believe in you because you believe in yourself. Mm-hmm. And so, I would do everything you can within your power not to compare yourself to other people, not to look at Steven Spielberg and go, oh, he made Jaws when he was 25. I'm 27 and I haven't made anything. What is wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. Everybody has their own journey and everybody has their own timeline, and, create from a place where, you believe in yourself and find confidence in yourself. But that sounds very hippy dippy. But I do believe it's a valuable skill set that oftentimes just people don't think about, because this business can be, as you said, it can be unrelenting and it can pound you into the pavement. You got to do everything you can to pound back.
Well, that might be hippy dippy, but peace and love, man. I'm on board with it. I think that's important. John-Michael, this has been it's flown. Look, we've been talking over an hour. I didn't even realize it. This has been great, and I appreciate you giving me so much of your time and sharing so much of your insight and violent ends. I'm not sure exactly when this review is going to run or the interview is going to run, so it may still be in a theater near you. I hope that it is. If not, I think you mentioned a 17-day window.
Yeah, so it's going to be in theaters 17 days. So it'll come out on VOD November 17th. You'll be able to get it on Apple, Amazon, all that stuff. And then shortly thereafter, I think it's going to AMC Plus. So it'll be around.
Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed it. It was great to see my state and somebody that I knew growing up doing this kind of work. And like I said, I think that if you check it out, it's a really, really engaging story about crime. It's a really, really good story about family. The performances I think are great. And, you probably won't be excited to see Sean Jones as I was, but then, you probably didn't grow up with Sean Jones, playing Batman to Justin and his brother's Robin or back vice versa. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. But John-Michael, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and good luck on your journey going forward, because I think that this is hopefully the beginning of many more exciting things. And I'm excited to see the next script that comes out, because I really enjoyed this one.
Thanks, man. From your lips to God's ears. Hopefully, I have a career after this.
Once again, I'd like to thank John-Michael for being so generous with his time, and it's so great to see somebody from Arkansas, another Arkansas filmmaker who came back home to make this movie, and it was a great conversation, and I hope that you got something out of it too. If you did, let me know down in the comments below, because this is something I might be interested in doing more of these kind of long-form interviews, talking to other filmmakers about what it's like to get a movie made. Thank you so much for hanging around and watching this discussion. As always, stay tuned right here for the latest in movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.